Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Nervape podcast. This is your host, Nervape James, and I am joined by two special guests today. We are going to be recording readings of story 3 from the Nervape Saga called Zapped, and later my two guests, Pio and Nerdape, they will be joining me again for a reading of story number 4 of the Nervape Saga, Friend or Foe. So before we start, I just want to, if my guests Nerdape and Pio, could you just say hello? Nerdape, you want to start?
Hello, this is Nerdape. I'm a co-writer of the Nerdape Saga.
Hi
Awesome.
everyone, my name is Pio, and I am also a co-writer on the Nervape Saga.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And great. So I think, before we get into like formal introductions and the writing process, I'm going to do a reading first of story number 3. Again, for the story series of the Nervape podcast, we will be doing readings of the Nervape Saga and also be talking to team members who are part of the design, creation, writing process of the Nervape Saga. And today we'll be focused on the writing team with Nerdape and Piyo. So without further ado, I'm going to start with Nervape Saga story number 3. So the Nervape Saga is broken up into different chapters, and this is chapter 1. And let me read there's a little log line for this particular chapter. So chapter 1 is Factories of Broken Dreams, and within chapter 1 there are 6 stories, and this is story number 3. It's called Zapped. A boat chase down the river leads to unwanted company and a revelation. And then there's an emoji of a orangutan, a dog, and a robot arm, I believe. And let's go ahead, and this is a reading of Zapped. Zapped. Dev pushed the turbo button on the B-boat. He winced in anticipation of the boat, but the B-boat did nothing. He pushed again and again frantically. The darn button was broken. Dev tried to steer in zigzag to lose the white ape, but the ape kept up. The white ape hit the turbo button, and his B-boat seemed to fly in the air. The boat was getting closer and closer. Ah, I can't be caught now. Dev pushed another button on the console, and loud electronic music blasted from the speakers. What the? Not that! Dev covered his ears against the deafening music. He felt for the console and pushed another button. There was a rumbling underneath his feet. There was a rumbling underneath his seat, and the ceiling above him parted. Boom! A rocket motor propelled the seat forcefully up and out of the boat, taking Dev with it. Dev launched into the sky like a kernel of popcorn and immediately came back down into the river. Sploosh. Dev was quickly carried by the current, and he fought to swim against it. His head was pulled under, and his breath wasn't going to last much longer. Suddenly, he felt himself being caught by a net, which took him closer to the white ape's boat. Yow! Dev landed on his face in the middle of the boat's cabin. He tried to get up, but the white ape's Shiba dog bit his butt. The white ape walked towards him one step at a time. That's it. This is the end. Dev braced himself for the white ape to attack. Chip, stop it! The white ape took the net off of Dev, and the dog let go. Dev got up as the white ape grabbed him by the shoulders, his face beaming. Hi, I'm Cookie, and here's Chip, my sweet and loyal buddy, said the ape as he nuzzled his dog. Dev shot Chip a sideways glance, and Chip gave one right back. Please, let me go to the 3rd continent with you, Cookie begged. The ape looked young and eager, his twinkling eyes looking straight at Dev. How do you know about the 3rd continent? I was in your dream. The dream? What are you talking about? Asked Dev. The voice. You heard the same one, didn't you? Come to the 3rd continent. You'll find what you are looking for. How do you know about that? I was in the same dream. It was a rocky world with millions of stars above. I saw you approaching and I hid behind a big rock. You turned the whole world green and filled with life. It was amazing. Dev felt his head spinning. In a short span of time, he was chased by a boat, launched into the sky in an emergency seat, and nearly drowned. And now the instigator of all this has fished him into his boat and claimed to have been in his dream. He looked back at the direction he came from, the chocolate banana factory no longer visible. Where else could he go now, though, but forward? I've heard that there's deserts to the west of here. We can start there, Cookie suggested. Dev sighed and nodded reluctantly, to which Cookie jumped up in joy. They abandoned Dev's now fragmented bee-boat and continued to travel in Cookie's boat. So why are you looking for the third continent anyway? Asked Dev. That's a great question. It all goes way back to how my mom and dad and siblings and grandma and grandpa and great-grandma and great-grandpa and my cousins and my nephews and nieces and Chip and, well, there are more, but first I have to tell you about how my family. Cookie rattled on nonstop while Chip barked excitedly. Dev could not keep up and stopped listening midway. His eyes slowly closed and he dozed off. The next day, Dev was assigned to steer the boat. He tried his best to concentrate as it was his first time steering the boat in a long time. I'll cheer you on with my song, said Cookie. Suddenly, an awful melody rang through the air. Cookie's singing was so bad that Dev had to cover his ears. Cookie's song immobilized Dev. Meanwhile, the boat headed straight towards a giant rock. Dev, look! Cookie shouted. The awful singing stopped, and Dev whipped his head around to see the boat smash into the boulder in the river. The bee-boat could not go forward. The bee-boat could not go forward for much longer. They pulled up to the nearest plantation and exited the boat for an emergency landing. The three ventured into the thick forest. Dev walked quickly, annoyed at Cookie. Now they've lost their only boat. Stop following me so closely. You'll get us all caught, said Dev as he walked even faster. Dev, I think these mushrooms are of the pop-poo-poo variety. They are edible, exclaimed Cookie. He picked up the mushrooms off the tree and put them into his pocket, humming and singing off tune. What are you doing with those things? Demanded Dev. My grandma used to make them into a delicious soup. I'm going to bring them back to my family so my little siblings can have some. I hope they're not hungry. He was again in his own world. Why did I let myself get into this? Dev sighed and shook his head. Was it really a good idea to agree to travel with this weirdo? Will we make it to the third continent without us all getting caught? I'm tired and dehydrated. I could really use some Gorilla Dew right about now. Dev's depressed thoughts were interrupted by Chip's sudden barking. The Shiba dog's ears perked up and he dashed away in the direction of the thick trees. Chip, where are you going? Cookie called out for his dog, but Chip quickly disappeared into the dark forest. Cookie ran towards the sound of Chip's barks, forcing Dev to follow suit. Finally, the thick trees cleared way to a field of grass. Chip was barking and jumping up to a buzzing drone. Cookie ran towards Chip with Dev behind him. Something seems odd, Dev thought. But before he had a chance to stop Cookie, Dev, Cookie, and Chip were all electrocuted by a second drone hiding in the grass. All three of them fell to the ground, fainting. Blackout. Dev touched his head, groaning. His whole body still felt tingly from the electric shock. He was in restraints, and so was Cookie and Chip. A mysterious figure with a face shield loomed over them. My name is Kraft. We're going to the chocolate banana factory. Cool. The end. All right. Cool. So that brings us to the ending of story number 3. So, all right. I have the privilege today of talking with the writers of this story, Nerdape and Piyo. Prior to this, I spoke with Echo, the founder of Nervape, and we went over story 1 and story 2, and we talked a little bit about, the process of writing, and also how that Nerdape and Piyo helped so much in help building the store and help building the Nervape Saga. So I'm really glad to be able to speak with them today. So yeah, first off, who is Nerdape and who is Piyo? Let's start with Nerdape. Who are you, and why did you choose this name as your writing name for the Nerdape Saga?
Well, so obviously I am Nerdape. So I picked the name since I wanted to find something that's like really relevant to the project. So I had to be an ape. Then I saw what kind of ape would I be. And so for me, I'm like kind of like a otaku and could be a nerdy person sometimes. Then I saw Nerdape. That's the name. That's got to be the name.
Awesome, cool. Thank you so much. And then Piyo, yeah.
Yeah, for me, so the story about how Pio nickname came to me, it's actually a nickname from my middle school years. I went to middle school in Japan, and one of the characters for my actual name means baby bird or like a baby chick. And in Japanese, chicks say pio pio when they tweet. And so people called me Pio, and that was kind of my nickname then. So I used that for this time as well.
Oh, I think yeah, I've seen this. I'm in Japan right now, and I've seen this PO mentioned. It's interesting because animals have different. They make different sounds in different countries. I guess like the way they teach. Oh, the dog goes wah wah or something like that in
Right.
different countries. Yeah, yeah. So that's very interesting here. Yeah. So yeah, how about for the two of you? You're both writers of the Nervape Saga. How did you both first meet? Did you meet specifically for this project, or have you met before?
We met before. We actually met as co-workers on a filmmaking project. Um, so it was a really intense project, but we got to chat a lot and then we got to learn about each other. So the thing about Pio is that she's really creative. She's very well traveled. She's done a lot of stuff and has a lot of diverse experience in life. So naturally, when I'm starting this project, I saw she would be the perfect writing partner for this Nerve project.
Yeah, it was great connecting with Nerbape previously, kind of working on this film project together, and that was a pretty kind of intensive one, and we really got to know each other through those several weeks, and I find her also to be a very creative and like dedicated person, and so once we got talking and we really connected, and it seemed like this is a great opportunity for us to take on.
That's so great. Yeah, and full disclosure, I also met Nerd Ape through like the filmmaking scene as well. So yeah, film is bringing us all together. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your background. You mentioned filmmaking. So would it be fair to say that you both come from a background in filmmaking, or maybe that was just like a certain thing that you did at the time? Yeah, I'm curious to hear about your backgrounds. Yeah, like you're writing now for you were writing for Nerve Ape, which is Web3 art project, and the writing style is like kind of like storytelling, basically, like kind of like narrative writing. Do you both have experience in that space, or maybe mostly just like writing for film? Or I'm curious to hear about your backgrounds. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start first. So on this one, so obviously I've been involved in filmmaking. So I am a producer and I'm also a screenwriter at home. I have my own project. So that's kind of like my background project, but but then this is my first time writing like a saga instead of like more in like a screen format, like a screenplay format.
All right. Hmm.
For me, I guess for me, like I'm not actually a filmmaker myself, although I did kind of work, in the film industry for a bit, and I was more kind of assisting and also doing some translation work on my end. But I have done some kind of creative writing with like for a previous job, and that was kind of for like Japanese monster mythology. That's very niche and specific, but and that ended up like I did like a series of like short stories that are based on some actual like Japanese mythology. Like they're called yokai, which is kind of a catch-all term for like supernatural creatures, monsters, and demons. And I wrote like a series of stories about them, and they got kind of virtually published for this rotating art gallery exhibit that we were having, and people could read them to like accompany the displayed artwork. And that was a ton of fun. I guess I've always kind of enjoyed writing as a hobby. And I've more kind of about like writing and like specifically for like blockchain stuff too. Like I've also had experience subtitling and translating for a blockchain summit. So that was also some like relevant, experience to going into Nervape, which was pretty cool for me.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. So it sounds like for Nerdape, like not so much blockchain experience, but you have some experience with like the filmmaking narrative side. And for PO, you have some experience with a little bit with blockchain, but it was like in the realm of translation. But that's so cool. I'm curious to hear about the yokai experience. Maybe I'll chat with you later about that, but that's so cool.
Mhm.
Uh for the like let's start with like the big questions first. So, like I've been, uh, I was attracted to like this project, no, this I guess metaverse project, Web3 company, Nervape, because of the Nervape Saga, which I know the both of you were, were there from the beginning of writing it, the Nervape Saga. And I'm really curious to hear like what for you as part of the creative team, uh, what is the Nerdape Saga? Like, how would you define it? Like, what if someone asks you, hey, Nerdape, Piyo, what's the Nerdape Saga? What is that? What would you say? Yeah.
To me, obviously, it's about the search of the third continent, but like the core of it is really about hope and bravery. So this is like about a bunch of ape, or you can say a bunch of people who want to seek a better life, and like of course it has to come with a cost. You have to like step out of your comfort zone to get there. So this is what, to me, this is what this is what the story is about.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. And then NPO.
Yeah, for me, I really think of this as kind of an epic story, just it's already spanning, all these various worlds and dimensions, kind of also piggybacking off of what Nerdape says, it's about like bravery too and hope, and as well as friendship and trust and self-discovery. So there's all these like, themes that I think almost everyone reading can really relate to, as human beings, to the story that we've tried to express.
Right. And it's interesting you mentioned I talked to Echo about this, like why apes, right? And could have been human beings, it could have been like dogs, it could have been, any creature, but she mentioned how apes are like it's our evolutionary ancestor, right? And how in a way like these apes are evolving, right? These apes are trying to become better, step out of their comfort zone, be stronger, be more brave. And I found that very interesting. The choice of the apes. So for this saga, like what are maybe some inspirations that you both took from, like I know, like was there anime inspirations, manga inspirations, inspirations from film, or like how did you go about like what were some of the kind of like the uh some of the influences, I guess, artistic influences that help you make the story? Yeah.
The very first, well, because we're talking about apes, right? So the very first inspiration is the movie 2001 Space Odyssey.
Oh,
If
okay.
anyone ever watch it, the very first scene, the very first imagery are apes, and then you see how they, evolve during basically very quickly in the film. So that's basically the very first inspiration that we had.
Hmm.
And to me also the saga to me, because it's like it goes from one world to the other. So to me, that's like a lot of traveling adventure. So a lot of RPG games came to
Okay.
mind. Also I think Dragon Ball, One Piece, or anime like that also inspired the story and some of the characters.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, like while there wasn't any kind of direct, references that were like that we were pulling from, totally kind of agree with Nerdape that we were inspired by a lot of sort of RPG elements that, have these themes of kind of friendship and bond and working together as a team and, going through all these trials and tribulations and, defeating monsters and whatnot that are also existing in this saga as well. So yeah, things like Hunter x Hunter, or later on some kind of inspiration from Tron in some of like the world that we've built and environments. And I guess a bit of like Lord of the Rings too. Like I think the character Cookie that we'll talk about was also to me has a little bit of a Sam kind of vibe.
Oh.
So yeah, some of those are inspirations.
Right. Okay. Now, yeah, I'm seeing like now that I'm hearing this, I'm seeing those connections. I know I know it's super long, but I started the One Piece manga, and I was just and I had at this point I had already finished reading the Nervape Saga that has been published so far, and I was like, wait, they're going different islands. It's like similar to like what these Nerdapes are doing, like these Nervapes are doing, like going to different like places, different worlds. So I did feel a little bit of that kind of artistic influence or like narrative influence, I guess. But yeah, again, like you mentioned, PI, it's its own thing. Yeah, yeah. So cool. As far as like like the writing and planning process, I know I talked to Echo and I noticed that you all have like meetings beforehand. I'm kind of curious about that process. Like, is there a lot of discussion before writing a story? Is there like an outline that you both follow? Yeah, if the both of you could speak a little bit about that.
Um, so I can speak to this question. So um usually we spend like a lot of time on brainstorming. So we like me and Pew, we have like a long discussion and then we run the ideas by Echo in the team. And then sometimes they have feedback, so we revise that. And then for me, I came up with a lot of the plots, and then Pio always have like something very creative and brilliant to add to it. Then we settle the plot, created an outline, and then we put it into writing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I would say that pretty much sums it up. Yeah, I mean, I think Echo may have mentioned it already, but for like the initial characters, they kind of had some existing sort of apes in mind. So we had sort of an image of them, and their certain colors and whatnot, but their sort of world around them and their backgrounds and stories were kind of yet to be figured out. And so that's where we came in and really thought about how each of these apes will interact with each other. Like what are they about? What are their personalities like? How do they fit into the stories? And that's where we started our discussions.
So if so for the brainstorm part, if I understand, like there's like the outline, which there's a lot of discussion with Echo and like the creator team. But then I guess for the both of you, you come in and bring, I guess, life to the characters. Is that fair to say? Like with the writing and with like you with like the interactions. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
Um,
I would
yeah,
agree with that. Oh, go ahead.
yeah. So yes, I agree with that. So with the initial process, because I think when we came in, there were like already 7 characters that we know we have to write about.
Hmm.
So kind of like expanded on that, and then like basically started the world building, and then just make everything more coherent, and then like kind of like spin it into like a saga instead of like oh, this is Cookie, this is Staff.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. And in this, you mentioned Cookie. Yeah. So in Zap, we're introduced to Cookie. I mean, we see him in the previous story. I forgot to mention, in the last story, Escape, in story number 2, we are left with an image of Dev being chased by this white ape, which we find out later is Cookie and Chip. So Pio mentioned Sam Gee's why I forget how you pronounce it, but Sam Gee's wise Jin.
Samwise Gamgee.
Oh, Samwise Gamgee. It maybe took some inspiration from that character. Is there any other inspirations or like maybe that like who's Chip or yeah, I'm curious to hear about this more about this character.
I don't know if they're like honestly, even Sam wasn't sort of like a conscious reference, but it's more like when I think about, there's a lot of similarities in their personalities, but also differences. I think Cookie's maybe a little bit more like naive and a little bit more like too trusting than Sam perhaps. And he's but that's also kind of part of his charm of Cookie is having this sort of like childlike almost like pureness. I think is a good word to describe him, but they also have similar sort of this holding on to hope and very much trusting and believing in the good of others are some of the traits I think that they share.
Hmm. And then yeah, Nerdape, is that fair to say? Yeah. Like
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and one thing to add about Cookie is that for me, one of the inspiration is actually also Donkey in Shrek. So when
okay.
I started out this adventure, I kind of felt that okay, so Dab is kind of like Shrek, and Donkey like Cookie, just like he could be annoying sometimes, just like keep talking and talking and talking and talking, but he's actually the perfect travel companion.
Right.
You
He's kind
ask
of like
for.
he's like a spiritual animal, right? Well, like what's my spiritual animal? Like Cookie's like the spiritual, maybe he's not the leader, but he's the spiritual leader, right? He's trying to get everyone on the same boat, emotionally, like literally and emotionally, right? Yeah. So uh yeah, and then and Chip, I guess Chip, dogs are cool. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think I when we thought of Cookie, it kind of made sense for him to have this kind of animal companion, and we thought like, having him have this pet dog, Shiba dog to be precise, would be, kind of interesting and would add another, would kind of allow us to play with some more, plot elements within the story.
Awesome. Yeah, I no, I really like Chip. Chip is a really fun addition, I think. Yeah. And for as far as like the imagery, like so we have like these boats, we have the pow poo poo mushroom. I know with time, I don't think we can go over all the different imagery, but maybe it's like for example, like the kind of like the third, like the rocky world that they come upon and the millions of stars that that the dreamlike imagery that we first see in the first few stories of the Nervape Saga. Like I'm assuming that's like 2001 Space Odyssey. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah. And then it being filled with flora and fauna. I really like that imagery. Where does that come from?
I think when we were designing the imagery of this dreamlike space, we're thinking about this should kind of like reflect like the reality that Dab and Cookie are in. So first of all, it's gotta be somewhere that's like really barren, like really you don't see life, like you don't see how life can thrive in this space. So that's why in contrast, that's why we created this like transformation, and we also want this transformation to kind of embody what Dab and Cookie, what they are looking for in their real life.
Mm, right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Okay, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I totally agree with that as well. Like, I think the keyword like life is really important here, where we thought of kind of going from almost like nothingness and no life to just like thriving with life, and flora and fauna, and there's nature and there's animals and, people, and like it's just, brimming with life. And with that, there's just like activity and just this sort of like energy of life and spirit. And that's sort of like what we wanted to convey here, of this like whole transformation of this world going from this barren area to something that's really flourishing.
Awesome. Yeah, and then for like Cookie, I think he wants in a way he wants to reach this like flourishing area, this place as a way to help his family, right? So we learned a little bit about Cookie's backstory, like how for so my question is like how big is his family? And like he mentioned so many when I was reading, I was like getting tired. I was like, man, he's listing lots of family. Like how big is his family? Like in general, we don't have to get that number, but like in general, how big is his family, and what are his hopes and dreams for himself and his family? I'm curious to know. Yeah.
I
Or I guess
think
we're gonna find out.
Yeah, I think yeah, we may find out. There's probably a lot that we don't know about Cookie yet as well, but we can for sure, from what he's already said, assume his family is quite large. He has younger siblings, he's got parents, extended family with grandparents and cousins. So you can imagine, like, like someone with a very large extended family. Like, I don't know if you have that, or if you might know other people, but it's kind of like that.
Got it. And then as far as like we end with like a drone zapping Cookie, Dev, and Chip, and it's like, oh, we don't know what's gonna happen, cliffhanger, right? Is there anything you want to mention about, the writing process of Zapped before we move with the next one? One thing I was curious last time when I asked Echo was like, oh wow, I really dig the cliffhangers. Like, is that like a key thing? Like, oh, we should always end with a cliffhanger. Yeah. So yeah, my first question is anything else we should know about the writing process of the story, and then like, is it important to always end with a cliffhanger? Yeah, I'm curious to hear both of your thoughts. Yeah. Yeah.
So with the cliffhanger, so we do prefer to have each story to end with a cliffhanger, but specifically with this story, we also wanna kind of make a new ape appear in the story. That's
Ah,
that we can talk about in story 4, but we wanna like basically keep introducing new things to the story to make it more exciting.
got it. Got it. Okay. And then speak about story 4. We are moving on to story number 4, friend or foe. So thank you so much, both of you, for your time today. We're gonna be this will be the end of this episode, but stay tuned. We're gonna be having recording of this podcast. We're gonna have a podcast about story number 4, friend or foe. So please stay tuned to that. So for now, signing off. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to both of you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.